IT or Democratic Services could start the recording. Brilliant. So thanks to everyone for attending this hybrid meeting for the Overview and Scrutiny Task Group Sustainable Public Transport on Thursday the 18th of February. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Councillor Kim Snape and I'm the chair of this committee. Please note this is a Teams meeting, it's being recorded and the video stream will also be uploaded to YouTube after the meeting. For each item, I'll invite members to use the raise hand function on your iPad to make any comments to ensure each member has the opportunity to speak and that they're not speaking over each other. When speaking, please reference the paragraph number to enable everyone to follow you. And please mute your microphone and video feed when you're not speaking. If the technology fails, then I'll adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issue. And if this isn't possible, a new date and time will be arranged. Please can I ask all members to confirm that they can hear and speak before the meeting begins, and I'll call out each member. Julia Berry.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Martin Boardman. No. Val Corns.
Yes, Chair.
Mark Clifford.
Present, Chair.
Gordon France.
Present, Chair.
Tom Gray.
Here, Chair.
Yvonne Hargreaves. No, Yvonne's not on the call. Laura Lennox.
Here, Chair.
And June Molyneux.
Yes, Chair. Here.
Brilliant. So if we go to apologies next, are there any apologies?
There's been no apologies, Chair.
No worries. I'm sure Yvonne will probably come on later. Right, if we go to the next item, so minutes of the meeting Friday the 29th of January. Now I think we will probably come back to the minutes later on because I know it has been raised that there's possibly some recommendations we could glean out of the minutes, particularly from the meeting with the MP. So are there any issues to raise on the accuracy of the minutes of Friday the 29th of January?
Chair, yes, please.
Yeah.
Oh, the Friday one, the one with Lindsay.
Yeah, we'll deal with that one first.
Yeah, I was chairing that meeting. It's just, can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult because the minutes aren't attached to the agenda. So I'm having to flick about from screen where normally you could just scroll through. We usually have our agenda and the minutes of the meeting are under that agenda, and they're not. They're under.
Oh, the previous.
You know what I mean? The previous one, and it's a bit awkward getting there.
Right. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Matthew? Or I presume are they attached to the 29th? So they're attached to the 29th meeting on ModGov because for the 29th meeting, but possibly they should have been attached to today's until they've been approved. Is that what you're saying?
I think so, really, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we could pass that back. I'm sure they'll take it on board.
Thanks, Chair.
No problem. Are there any other comments? So are we all in favour of approving the minutes? Subject to what June said about June chairing the meeting. Laura? Oh, I thought Laura just put a hand up.
I did just to acknowledge I was accepting the minutes. Sorry.
Oh, right, brilliant. No worries. So there's nobody against the minutes then. That's fine. So we'll approve those for Friday the 29th of January. Item 2 is minutes of the meeting Thursday the 4th of February. Are there any issues to raise on the accuracy of those minutes? No, I'll take the silence as no. So are we, well, I'll just say, are there anybody against accepting those minutes? No, so those minutes are approved for Thursday the 4th of February. Brilliant, we're whipping through this.
I think it might grind to a halt.
Item 3, declarations of any interest. Members are reminded of the responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect to matters contained in this agenda. As this is a virtual meeting, if a member's got a pecuniary interest, they're requested to leave the call completely rather than just mute the microphone. The member can then rejoin the call following completion of the item in question. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? No, that's fine. So we'll go on to item 4, the biggie, what we're all here for, to receive and consider the final draft report. Alison, are you speaking to this?
I am, Chair.
Brilliant. I mean, what I was thinking, well, I don't know if Alison wants to sort of introduce it, and then I thought that we might go through the report sort of section by section, because I know you've broken it down into topic areas and everything, haven't you? So is there anything, what do you want to introduce it to us?
Well, obviously we had a scoping document and we followed that to the letter as far as we can. We've gone through all the objectives that we were set, and we have split the report up into objectives, and we've had a number of people, stakeholders and organisations to meet, and we have gone through and met most of those. There were a number that didn't that were approached and initially said they would come and talk to us and declined, but again, some of the information we've already got. We've gone through, it's sort of dovetailed because we've got the climate change working group that's taking place, and also we've had the green agenda working group. So we have indicated those recommendations and then added excuse me, added a number of recommendations beyond that. So it's set out in the objectives of looking at how you look at the difficulty the council has enforcing on public transport, particularly bus and train. It examines the public transport routes and any changes required, looking at democratic needs and what's in position at the moment. It also looks at how we can tackle social isolation, and we spent a long time looking at dial-a-rides initiatives. The opportunities for sustainable funding for buses, the different types of funding and how that might evolve. And also we talked to a lot of different stakeholders and also used examples from different authorities to see how we can take sustainable public transport initiatives forward. I think that's all, Chair.
Brilliant. No, thank you. And I know you've done a lot of work on it, so thank you. So I thought, and I must apologise to members as well, because I know it was only sent out on Tuesday, but it was my fault. So I apologise you've only had a couple of days to read it, because unfortunately I've been a bit snowed under last week or so with work. So just in case anybody was going to raise that. But right, so if we go to the introduction on the report, are there any comments on that or spelling errors or anything like that June wants to pick me up on? Are we
Sorry,
all happy?
Chair, would you like me to share the screen so we can all see the report as we go through it?
Thank you, Matthew.
Great idea, thank you.
Hopefully it works. Are we all seeing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Great
Oh.
idea, yeah. So the introduction, are there any comments or anything like that? Anybody not happy with the introduction? It's fairly self-explanatory. Or if anybody thinks anything's been missed off the introduction, something glaringly obvious, or no, so we're all okay with that. Yeah, okay,
that's
so
fine.
that's the easy
Carry
one.
on.
We'll go on to the next one. So then we've got a summary of the recommendations, which are basically sort of gleaned from each section below. So I think if we change or add to any of those recommendations, that will sort of change anyway, that summary section. So I'm not proposing that we go through that really, because if we add or amend to any of the recommendations, that section will change once we've met this evening. So is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. So then we've got membership of the task group, self-explanatory. Officer support, self-explanatory. The approach of the task group. Everybody happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we've got scoping of the review. Basically sort of reiterating the objectives and the desired outcomes which were documented in our original scoping documents. I think in essence we've already approved that previously. We're all okay with that. I'm not seeing anybody's hands popping up. In terms of reference, again, we've already approved that previously, so that's just reiterating that from our scoping document. Witnesses, the following witnesses that we've met with in the task group and those that we've approached that haven't wanted to engage with us. Are we all happy with that? Nobody's been missed or anything like that?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. And then evidence submitted. So that's just saying in terms of how members of the public were approached and some of the other submissions. Are we happy with that paragraph?
Chair, I know it's a bit late, but Adlington Council did submit something, didn't they, on Monday night?
Yeah, I know I forwarded that to Alison today from my personal email.
Yeah.
I know it was a late.
I know
Is it
it's a late
possible?
Yeah,
one, but they have done it.
We have got that, and we'll add a little bit in there on
Yeah,
that.
thanks.
With regards to Facebook and the surveys, we've had a few more in again, covering sort of all the areas that, you know, the cost of fares, ticketing, rail services need improving, etc. So again, we'll expand on that section again from the additional ones that we've received.
Brilliant. That's great.
That's
great.
good.
It's good you've got some replies. That's brilliant. So then we'll go on. So then we've got the background in terms of why the task group was formed. So that's explanatory. We're okay with that. And then Chorley's position. So it sets out the climate change emergency that the council passed. Again, we've all sort of previously approved that anyway. Then we've got the corporate strategy in terms of how the council approaches itself. The council, I'm just trying to keep on an eye on if anybody puts their hand up. The council's green agenda in terms of what was discussed in the previous task group that that Alison referred to earlier on. And I think Alison has sort of gleaned out some of the recommendations that came from that task group in terms of things that would be applicable to sustainable public transport or to sustainable transport full stop. Is there anything that anybody wants to add on that section? But I think that's basically just reiterating and carrying through the recommendations that came out of the last task group. So it's already been approved anyway. So there's nothing to add. Climate change working group, that's already been covered. So telling people that the working group's been set up. And then we've got learning from other authorities in terms of some of the research that we've done and some of the other places that we've spoken to. Anything anybody wants to pick up on that? No. Then we've got findings and recommendations. So I think this is the bit that I'm going to get into. So we've got the difficulty the council has enforcing public transport, particularly bus and train. So that talks about the situation with buses. And then it goes on to the situation with Lancashire County Council and their different responsibilities and the bus services that are covered in Chorley Borough. And then we get on to the recommendations, which are entitled which are entitled recommendation 1 and 2. So is there anything anybody wants to add? Or so June, yeah.
Yes, Chair. I think we need to beef up that with Lobby County, yes. But I think it came out that I think it was the last meeting that we should have that dialogue and try and influence appropriate bodies in order to enhance those service. And perhaps local county councillors should meet regularly with transport officers and report back to us as a borough, and the borough then could also report to them that they could pass on to the transport. So have that dialogue.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's more than just lobbying them.
Yeah. So do you want that in the same recommendation or an additional recommendation?
That's completely. I don't mind. You know, it's just. I think it needs to be there that we need to get that dialogue going.
Yeah. So something like that. The council will improve dialogue on.
Our local county councillors encourage local county councillors to meet regularly with the transport officers at county and report back, but it's a two-way process, isn't it?
Yeah, we can add that. Encourage local county councillors.
Yeah.
Encourage local county councillors to meet regularly with transport officers at county and improve the dialogue with Chorley Council. Yeah, Laura.
Thanks, Chair. I think I agree with June completely, but I think it needs to be more structured in the sense that the buses in particular, it applies to trains as well, but I think it's more annual. Buses in particular seem to have changes about twice a year to bus services. Perhaps we should be able to meet with the county, and our county councillors or officers should be able to at the prior to any bus changes, so that we can actually input in advance rather than responding to things when they go wrong.
Being reactive.
It's
not
understanding
proactive.
the cycle.
Proactive.
Yeah, it's understanding the cycle, isn't it? There must be a regular cycle to this sort of thing, because the changes in services seem to come about twice a year. And we need to be in before the changes occur, not after, when they've sent a bus down the wrong road.
So if we said, well, what about if we said, because
so we need to ask officers to find out when Lancashire are likely to be doing this, because one of the things that came out was this business of consultation. The bus companies consult with Lancashire, but Lancashire don't consult with anybody in the district. It applies to the railways as well. But if we know when the cycle of events is, then we're in a position to do it. So it's about timetabling routine meetings, isn't it, in advance of any changes?
Alison, did you have something to add to that?
All I was going to say was that we got the impression, yes, there may be regular times where they look at this, but often the county implied that if a route wasn't viable by an operator, it was just given back to them, and then they had to look at whether they had funding to provide that or to stop it. So I think, again, it depends on the operator, but yes, we can certainly look at that.
Even if we said quarterly, I think you're right. You're probably right, Alison, because I know like the bus that went to Croston, I think they gave like months' notice or whatever the statutory notices, didn't they? And it's I don't think they'd given anybody any heads up that it was going. I think that was quite short notice. So we can add something along those lines. Are there any other comments, June?
Well, I was going to say, but it's too late when they say this isn't viable, isn't it? I mean, if they gave that input to us first, you could go out and tell people and say, look, this service isn't being used. Could you use it more? Could you do that?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, one of the things I'd written down was focus on influencing appropriate bodies to enhance public transport services, which is what we would be doing with that.
Yeah.
Any bodies at the county, ourselves, and the operators.
Yeah.
Because they just, you know.
Laura?
I was just going to say,
trying to put my hand down.
Sorry.
If we don't know what the statutory notice periods are, that's an impediment before we start, isn't it? So we need to find out from county what a statutory notice period is if a service is deemed by the operators become unviable. And then if we don't even know, we quarterly might be no good, because if it happens, the week after we've had a meeting, it's too late, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it's not very long, because I know when we've had it in Adlington, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's not long at all. It's a few weeks. June, you've put your hand back up.
Sorry. If we have that meeting scheduled with them, at least, even if it's only quarterly, it gets us a bit nearer to those things, and you get used to doing it, and perhaps they get used to giving us this information.
Yeah,
it's possibly the first step.
Yeah, and also I think even to identify if there are issues with the numbers of passengers using particular services, that the county, that then as councillors we can be going out there promoting those services, can't we? And saying, use it or lose it.
Yeah,
'cause
agreed.
Yeah. So are we all right to add a third recommendation in there, Alison?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Brilliant. So is there anything else anybody wants to add on the buses section? No? Okay. So we'll go on to trains. So that's kind of setting the scene, the situation in terms of station provision in the borough and the different responsibilities and some of the feedback Northern gave us around the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we've got 2 recommendations there, so I don't need to read them out. Is there anything that people want to add or amend or suggest to be added to that section around trains? June?
Well, of course, I mean, Northern Rail do quite bizarrely at times contact Adlington Council, so they can consult directly with councils if they want to, because and we've had it on our agenda at Adlington a few times, so you know they actually do that. So it would be that definitely needs to be there.
Yeah, or maybe even Northern Rail and Lancashire County Council be requested, because Lancashire County Council are the transport authority.
Yeah.
Did you want to come back on that, Alison?
Yeah, that's fine. We were going to try and find a named person that they would write to, because obviously they write to, as you say, the county, and they write to parish councils. If we can find somebody within the council, a directorate that they would write to, then we could give them that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura?
I just wanted to add the routinely bit in there again, because you want it to happen before the changes, don't you? So
yeah,
if we can put the routine element in again, so that everybody gets the heads up, then it's much better.
Yeah. So do we want meetings with Northern Rail, or do we just want consultation and communication as to when they're going to change things?
Routine consultation, yeah. But I mean, the changes tend to occur at the new year, don't they, with the railways?
Yeah, well, we've just had one through for Adlington. I think the timetables are changing in May, and then I think again he said in I think he'd intimated September as the next one.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure we.
But if they can do it to Adlington, they can do it to Chorley, can't they?
They can, yeah. Alison.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Did you put your hand up?
No, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you wanted to comment on that. June, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I put it up and put it down and put it up again. I'll get it right. Do we need to say something with the rail about the stations, the accessibility issues that there are?
Alison, yeah.
Because I know some of the trains at Adlington aren't accessible. They say they're too long for the platform and things like that. So, or is it somewhere else? Does that come somewhere else?
I think yes, it does come somewhere else.
That's okay.
Let me just have a quick look.
I'll remember.
We'll definitely put that point down. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Have you put your hand back up again, June?
No, I didn't. No, I pressed something else and you've all gone.
Oh, sorry.
I pressed a message from Chris Lennox, of all people.
Oh, I've just seen that as well, yeah.
I was moving it. I put my hand down.
Right, so we're all okay with that, subject to adding that additional recommendation about regular communication and consultation with Northern Rail and Lancashire County Council. Not just on buses, obviously, but also on train services as well. So if we go to the next one, examine all public transport routes and changes required due to demographic needs. So we've got a bit of background info in terms of the main bus operators in Chorley and some of the feedback we had from the county council and the situation with how things are run in Chorley, and some of the feedback we had from Stagecoach. And then we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 recommendations there. Is there any thoughts or comments or anything that people have on that section? or those recommendations?
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
Was there something in Lindsay's in that meeting? And I can't remember now.
Well, should we go? Well, should we go back to I just thought, and then we're not to and fro. Should we go back to? We'll go back to Lindsay's minutes at the end. Is that all right?
At the end,
and
that's
then we
all
can,
right. Yeah, that's fine.
I won't forget. Mark.
Yeah, one of the recommendations that I'd like to see is when we did the Stagecoach meeting, that it was very interesting to listen to them when it came down to the fact that they won't put a bus route into some developments, and that we need to be putting some of these recommendations that mentioning planning as well, because I think that was a very valid point, that some possibly new developments are never going to get themselves on a public transport route, and I think that needs putting into any sort of recommendation to work with planning as well.
Oh, that was coming later. I've got that on my list later.
So do you want that on this section, or do you want that further down on stuff around planning, or?
Well, wherever you think it's more suitable.
Alison, I think Alison wants to come back on it.
Hello. I'm happy to put something in wherever is suitable, but also the climate change working group is going to be focusing on that with regards to sort of, again, it was covered in the green agenda and the recommendations about principles and adopting planning policy in relation to the local plan for public transport, etc., and sustainable development. So I'm just a bit careful that there's not double counting, but obviously we can put it in there, a bit more information on how they go about and what they won't allow.
Well,
June, yeah, thank you, Alison.
Could we not? Our recommendation be that the working group investigate it further and look at the issue. So that's one of our recommendations. So it links it in, and it, to send that to the appropriate bodies to look at. So the climate change working group to look at that further.
Are you happy with that, Mark?
I would be, yeah. That's a very good suggestion from June there. As I sit on that working group for climate change, it's yeah, to see that recommendation on here would be good. Yes.
Brilliant. So if we could sort that, Alison, that would be great. Are there any other comments or additions or amendments or anything that people want on that section?
Hi, it's Julie, Councillor Berry. I've had my hand up for a while.
Oh, sorry, I apologise.
Thanks. Could I just refer you back to the heading reopening of Coppell Railway Station? Just like the task group to be mindful that in the likelihood that the government will reopen their competition regarding reopening of railway stations, that Chorley Council and the Transport Authority, which obviously is Lancashire County Council, will be mindful to be putting aside match funding to pursue a business case for the reopening of Coppell Railway Station. Unfortunately, last week's budget meeting at Lancashire County Council, we've got a rather sarcastic reply from the cabinet member responsible for transport that they haven't had a formal discussion with any agency regarding pursuing the station, but I'm sure that Chorley have the aspiration to pursue something if that opportunity comes along in the new year.
Oh yeah, we'll come to that because I think it's one of the recommendations later on, Julia, so we can have a proper look at that. Thanks. No problem. Sorry I missed you, I apologise. Laura?
Chair. Under item, I keep rereading this under item 7 of the recommendations. I'm trying to think how to beef it up somehow. The thing that bothers me is that the bus companies aren't really going to believe that routes are going to be viable, because we've told quite clearly by Stagecoach that they aren't interested in new routes. They're interested in the ones they've got, namely the 125, and they'll only change it if they think it's going to be better from their point of view. So I wondered if we could perhaps add something into that about the council Chorley Council might recommend a route that may be viable, and so that, you know, we actually positively influence something rather than waiting for somebody else to come up with something we know they're not going to do.
Yeah, well, I think that one, because when I've spoken to apparently Lindsay has previously had bus operators approach him saying that, I don't think necessarily Stagecoach, but saying that the county council just stick a brick wall up to them, because some of the smaller operators, in terms of bus routes that they think they can run. So I think that's where that came from. I don't think, as you say, it's Stagecoach.
Well, can we do it as well?
Yeah, we can do it. In
so
addition,
it's more positive. It comes from Chorley as well. Yes, encourage the bus operating, but could we ask them to consider whether something might be viable?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. No problem. June.
I'm just going to say, and ask a range of operators. It doesn't have to be Stagecoach.
No.
Because, I mean, we've got tirers and homes who take on some routes. They're happy with what they're getting. It's viable for them. It's just Stagecoach basically don't want to do it. So, you know, they've got to be a bit more creative with the thinking of who they ask to take on a route, perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah. So are we okay to amend that to Laura's suggestion, Alison?
That's fine, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. So are there any further comments on that section? No. Okay, so we'll go on to the next section, trains. So that gives us a bit of info as to across Chorley, and then we've got the Northwest Manchester Rail study, some of the background there. Then we've got a section on the reopening of Coppell Station, and we've got 3 recommendations there. One being about Coppell Railway Station, and then 2 others. Is there anything anybody wants to add? Julia, Alison.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to say the Northwest Manchester Rail study is hot off the press and only came in as an email last week. So we will be engaging with the consultants who are doing this work. Thank you.
Brilliant. Superb. So is everybody happy with those 3 recommendations, or is there anything that you want amending to the Coppell Railway Station section, Julia, or you happy with that?
Thanks.
Brilliant. Super. No worries. So then we'll go on to the social isolation section to tackle social isolation, public transport in all areas of the borough. And then we've got, so that's recommendation 12, A, B, C, D. Are there any thoughts or comments on that section and those recommendations? Julia?
Yeah, I just think it's important that within the scope of our task group that we set ourselves some challenges. Obviously, most of our work has been around, you know, identifying what we've got now and the challenges we've got now, but we need some bold aspirations. And when we talk about the social isolation, really we're meaning about providing equity for people, you know, wherever they live. And in some transport authorities, they set a target of, it's like a 20-minute rule, that within 20 minutes you can access all the vital services that any citizen is entitled to access, and that's by means of walking or wheels, and that's can be an aspiration for us, really, and a standard that we aspire to, because unless, I know we're not the Transport Authority, but unless we have a focus on something bigger and better, or sort of, well, that works for people, we can't really effectively lobby all these other agencies and obviously the Transport Authority and the government. We shouldn't let the government off the hook. So it's a case of we need to be aspirational, and I don't know whether that needs to a standard 20-minute rule, because I mean, previously it was a rule for buses that, you know, you need to be 10 minutes away from a walking distance from a bus stop, and we forget about this sort of minimum standard, really, and it would really look well, really, in the local plan to have that aspiration.
Yeah, well, I think Adlington Town Council sent some stuff through about this 20-minute neighbourhoods. Yeah, so I think it is. June,
No, I wasn't that. Carry on, because I'm finished with that one, and then I'll come in because it's something else.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if, because I know I sent it through to Alison. It was only this afternoon because, as I said, they were late submitting. But I don't know if we can add something along those lines of what Julie was saying.
It's something that is sort of a national figure that's coming through that, again, it has to be looked at through the local plan process. We can certainly, do you want it as a recommendation or do you want it in the text?
What would you like, Julia?
I think there's no reason why it shouldn't be in the text. If it is, at the very least, it's an aspiration, and it's not something we can beat ourselves up about. It's just that we need to have bold challenges for the future.
So it's a recommendation, I would say.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think it should be in the text. That also, along with mobility as a service, the terminology in our document should be about making sure that anyone, whoever you are, has fair access to public transport.
Yeah, we could do that. Are you okay with that, Alison? So if we have it as in the sort of earlier text and as a recommendation?
Yes, we can do. I mean, again, most Department of Transport advice, it's very dated, but it's sort of used as a gauge, is that normally people won't walk more than between 400 metres and 800 metres to get to a bus stop. And that's why when you get a new development in, there's invariably a bus stop within 400 to 800 metres. But yes, we can add that in. Thank you.
Brilliant. So you okay with that, Julia?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. June?
Okay. I think I'm going to be a bit better. If we're serious about tackling social isolation, one of the difficulties is that once buses were deregularised, then it made it worse for all the villages and all these places. So we should be perhaps lobbying the ministers, our MP and the government to actually go back and re-regulate the buses. And that's one way we would tackle social isolation. And if the government were serious about it, which they keep saying they are, that's something they could do. So perhaps we should be lobbying and putting that question.
Yeah, why not? I mean, we could. I mean, I know you raised it. I wonder whether or not, if we go through some of the suggestions Lindsay made, that we have a section about, working with our MP and parliamentarians and lobbying the government to change some of these things, because, as you say, a lot of it's national stuff as well. So I wonder if we could have a section about some of the involvement from government that we need and some of the changes that we need, like like the bus regulation. And would that be okay? Would that be okay, or do you want to add into this section around social isolation? June?
Oh, mate, I don't mind where it goes as long as it goes in somewhere. Perhaps a section on its own, as I say, because Lindsay had some comments and that. So I don't mind where it goes, but I think it's just needs to be in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. We can do that, Chair.
Thanks.
Fab. No, that'd be great. Laura?
Thank you, Chair. It's a couple of links, really. Yes, there may be regulations about how far you have to walk to a bus stop, and developers do tend to put in bus stops when they're doing developments, but it doesn't mean there's a bus service. When I represented South West Ward, there were a whole row of beautiful bus shelters put up, and on the notice board it said there is no service from this bus stop. It's true also of post boxes as well. You're supposed to have a minimum distance of walking to a post box, but you try finding them on new developments. They're really, really difficult. In a way, it's much more about the re-regulation. So yeah, my point is halfway between the ones that Julia and June have made, really, in that yes, we've got to have minimum standards, but if in the end it's the service isn't provided, we haven't achieved anything. So it is much more about we need to lobby for re-regulation so that we can actually get a service to the bus stops we ensure are put in the planning process. I don't think there's anything to add. I'm just making the point.
No, I think you're right. And it needs to change. Otherwise, it's just all talk, isn't it? And nothing,
Yeah.
everything will stay the same.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, that's
Thank
fine. Tommy?
Yeah. I don't see Lancashire County Council doing anything whatsoever, or the bus companies. When a bus company goes in liquidation, we don't even get the chance to do anything because, Lancashire County Council don't inform us straight away that bus company's gone into liquidation. Like the 119. All this time, we've had no bus through Exton there since they went to liquidation, Fish Weeks. And all of a sudden, after 12, 18 months, since then, it might be more, they put the 119 back on. They don't tell us about it, and they reroute it a different way. Well, this isn't good enough, is it? I mean, I said it should be informing the local councillors as well that they're going to try and do something about it, but they don't. And that's what gets you annoyed, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. Rather than them being proactive, they're reactive, aren't they? And they don't.
Yeah, this is it. They don't do nothing about it, county.
Sorry, it goes back to that. We need that dialogue. It's not there at the moment. There's nothing.
Yeah.
So we need that.
Yeah, I wonder if we should also. I mean, I know it's another recommendation, but when Lancashire County Council is informed that a service is no longer going to operate, that they communicate with Chorley Council on their intentions.
Well, they could do something, yeah.
Because the thing is,
it's a courtesy, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, we can have quarterly meetings and be proactive about stuff, but if something happens overnight, you know, we could miss that, couldn't we, if they don't communicate with us?
That's right, yeah.
So could we add something somewhere to that effect, Alison?
Yes, we can. We'll have a look at what's been said already and make sure it's all combined in one or two recommendations. Yeah.
Brilliant. Super.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks.
Anything further on that section, anybody? Right, we'll go on to the next section then. So we'll go to the opportunities for sustainable funding for buses. So we've got funding from Lancashire County Council, so that takes us through that section. Bit of info as to some of the subsidised services and the other services in the borough. Then we've...
Chair?
Yeah.
And we're not doing anything with the dial ride bit.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
The dial-a-ride bit on recommendation 12.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, because I know you've raised it. So, is there anything further that any changes or anything that people want?
It's me again somewhere to actually say that. In addition to funding explore ways that we can support. I mean, I've got a list. We can do financial. We can help them recruit volunteers. We can help them with time credits and things like that. And perhaps we need to say we could help them with focus campaigns to highlight the service, because that came out as one of the issues, that people didn't know what they could use and what they could do. So perhaps it's just beefing that bit up where it's saying.
Yeah, Julia, is that on the same comment?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Basically, just to give you an overview of commuter transport in Lancashire, is that years ago a consortium was set up with the idea that if you brought all the people involved in commuter transport together, that somehow they would knit together, share good practice, be creative, and it would flourish. But unfortunately, funding's been cut, and actually this sort of like within their own organisations didn't really reach out to other providers. So in a way, it's been a great failure. And what we've got now is community transport that hasn't got the capacity, even in times of COVID, when we've probably got vulnerable people that need virtually taxiing for vaccinations and for checkups and whatever else, we've not really been able to be dynamic enough to pick up some of that work, because it's a limited amounts of vehicles, all the restrictions under COVID with social distancing. But having a local base for community transport sort of almost gives us an opportunity, and I think there should be more dialogue with the council really to think about how we can build some capacity to meet the needs of individuals that don't have access to buses, cars, and they often living alone at home. So we need to meet their needs, and we're not doing it at the moment.
You're muted, Kim. You're doing my trick.
Sorry, Alison, did you want to come back on those two comments?
I just wanted to come back on the communication, because 12A covers about communicating activity with Dial-A-Ride and what the service is and what they need. Is that not covered in that point, rather than going back into D as well?
I'm just reading. Yeah. I suppose, yes, yeah. And
we'll have. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, and from my understanding, things have been highlighted from the COVID team that we've got. They've got information, haven't they, that of people who need transport, and perhaps we need to find. To me, it's finding volunteers and going out to people out there, perhaps.
Yeah,
I think we need to go. Go on.
Yeah,
sorry, Kim.
I think Angela Braga was saying that some of the COVID stuff that's been set up in response to the pandemic around transport, they've kind of gone to the maximum capacity in terms of recruiting volunteers and stuff for it. But at the same time, it seems a bit strange that the commission service for Dial-A-Ride, as Julia says, doesn't really have any capacity. So I suppose it's bringing everybody together, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Is that okay?
Yeah, will do.
Can I just say, sorry, can I speak, please? Or no?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, just to give you some anecdotal evidence of in recent weeks, an organisation called Chorley Buddies put an advert on Facebook for drivers, and they got 20 volunteers. So, and then they had 20 volunteers, and they haven't got the ability to be able to deploy them, so they've redeployed them doing other activities. So that's fantastic, and it's just like say June saying that we've got the ability to recruit volunteers, and we've got the vehicles. Then it's all systems go. Hopefully, that'd be great. Thanks.
Brilliant. Sorry, Alison.
I just wanted to say there's also it's more sort of a commuting issue, but there's also Lancashire County Council have got their shared wheels lift share, which is on their website, which allows people to join up if they're travelling together for commuting or whatever. And there are quite a lot of organisations that have put links on. So again, we'll make a reference to that in this document. Thank you.
Thank you. That would be great. Tommy?
Could we not get the parish councils to put things in the notice boards around the villages to tell people what to do to get Dial-A-Ride? Put it on Facebook or anywhere, to inform, because I think a lot of people don't know much about it.
Yeah, well, I think that'll come with those if they get in touch with the parish councils and go to some of the meetings and stuff. I think that'll self-evolve, but I might be wrong. But did you want to come back on that, Alison?
Yeah, we can make a reference, but I think again, once they've met with the individual parish councils, there will be a lot more to do, but we can make a reference to that. Thank you.
Super.
Right.
June?
That's my spelling mistake. You knew I'd find one, didn't you?
Yeah.
On 12C, it's not apostrophe S on parishes.
Right, no worries. So
she knew I'd find a mistake somewhere.
I was waiting for you. Alison?
Yes, we can do that. Oh, sorry, brilliant. Apologies. Apologies.
No, it's
Sorry.
it's my teacher training.
Brilliant. So we're all okay with that section then. We can go on to the next section. Did Yvonne have a hand up?
I did, Kim. I just
Positive.
thought if you forgot me. I'm sorry I'm late. I was with the surveyor and I got just carried away. I'm sorry. I apologise. I recall the lady she came to give us a talk from Dial-A-Ride, and she was talking about, certainly in the Clayton North area, that I used to go to Clayton Brook, and basically the old people's home there was at one time a regular user of Dial-A-Ride, and over the years that has really just sizzled down to practically nothing. And one of the things when I was talking to somebody in Briery Court was they were saying that they found it far more convenient and not so expensive to get a cab, which was a bit worrying. But it wasn't just one person. It was 3 who actually said they prefer to get a cab, and quite often they organise it themselves, so they go together. So I can see that this has been, an ongoing problem for Dial-A-Ride regarding funding and regarding usage.
Yeah, it's a fair point to make, but I mean, I don't think they get themselves out there, to be honest, and people don't know about them, and I think we've got to be the people to change that, haven't we?
That's true. We've got to spearhead. Absolutely right.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the county council's going to do that as much as we want them
So it's down to
so,
Charlieborough to be facilitators. There you go.
Yeah, and doers, yeah, rather than relying on county. But no, that's great. We can take that on board. Fab. So we'll go on to the next section, the opportunities for sustainable funding for buses. Yeah, I'm on the right bit on it. Yeah. We've got funding for environmental facilities on there, planning obligations, SIL funds, other funding initiatives, and then we go down to the next recommendation about the council should explore the feasibility of attracting a car club to the borough, possibly through planning gain. I know that's something I've raised a few times with different people. It might happen, it might not. I just think it's, particularly with some of these larger developments that are nowhere near bus routes, it's something that's
to explore. Yeah.
Mark, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just the wording actually of that. Instantly, when I read that, my idea of a car club, maybe what a lot of people's is on a Sunday, where the Lotus Club may meet, or the Ferrari Club, or similar. I think it
club.
Yeah, it needs a slightly different wording, I would say.
Yeah, we can look at that, Laura.
Thank you, Chair. Just to point out that car clubs or car share clubs tend to work best in areas where there's very good public transport and people only want to share a car for those long distance journeys that they can't make easily by public transport. They're very, very popular in London because people tend not to have their own car, but sometimes need a car for themselves. Are we thinking of something different here? I'm not quite sure what a car club means, because if we haven't got decent public transport, everybody's thrown back on getting their own car.
Yeah, I mean, well, there are decent. There are different models, aren't there? There are some that are more run on sort of profit and stuff. There are cooperative models, but I know. So rather than sort of a car share scheme, it would be more where people could sort of rent a car for a day, and where people might not have a high car ownership, but they can drive, and I don't know. I mean, if people want it taken out, we could take it out.
Oh no, don't take it out. I'm just pointing out that that's where they tend to be very popular, where people don't have their own cars because the public transport is good for everyday use, but not good when you want to go on go and visit your grandparents out in the sticks, or go to visit a stately home.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought, with more and more of these developments that we seem to be they're being built are nowhere near public transport, are they? It's Julia, did you? have any comments on it?
I'm wishing to comment about the Lancashire County Council funding.
Oh, right, brilliant. Well,
relevant.
so do you think, Alison, if we sort of amended that recommendation and just sort of clarified the definition of a car club, would that meet what Mark was saying?
Yes, we'll have a look at that. Thank you.
And then it's not misconstrued, yeah?
Yes.
Or misunderstood.
Yeah.
That'd be brilliant. Julia, yeah, do you want to come back on your point?
Yeah, the information regarding funding for the Lancashire County Councils appears a bit like an apology for the Lancashire County Council, and yeah, they should be apologising. And how we address things really, as far as equity, is that we as a body should be requesting that the county council themselves and conduct some scrutiny about transport throughout Lancashire. Really, I mean, unfortunately, Chorley is very aspirational, but yet places like East Lancashire and West Lancashire, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years, have benefited from being awarded government money. You know, they've operated as pilot studies for community transport as well, and in a way, you know, with a poor relation. And until we see the data, the evidence that they are giving us a fair access to funding, then we can't, you know, we're left really without knowing whether it's good or bad, or we just feel like the poor relation. So I'd request that we have asked them to hold a public transport scrutiny task group, and also that they publish their transport plan, whatever it looks like. I know they put it on the shelf and it should have gone out to consultation in the autumn, but we need to see which direction they're going in, so that we either be reassured or feel like we have to like say lobby them even more, and just be reassured that every county councillor in this last couple of weeks really approach senior management at the county council to address the worrying aspects of speculative planning applications, and the impact it will have on the Lancashire County Council's ability and local ability to provide services, whether that's school places or particularly with public transport. So just watch this space. Just don't think we've not talked about it today. It's you know that it's not happening.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So do you want us to be pushing a recommendation for the county council to have a public transport task group?
I certainly do, because obviously we don't see the data. It's not transparent. We just know anecdotally that East Lancashire and West Lancashire benefited from extra funding in the last 10 years for pilots, and obviously some of those have just started and stopped. But we were never the beneficiaries of anything progressive that perhaps would have helped us to be more sustainable than we are now.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we can add something along those lines. Is that all right, Alison?
Yes, that's fine. My understanding with the local transport plan is that they're doing a refresh in spring of local transport plan number 3, and then coming out with a full version of the local transport plan 4 towards the summer. But we can clarify that as well with the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to come back on that, Julia? You've got your hand up.
That's fine. Sorry, I'll lower my hand. Sorry about that.
Brilliant. Yvonne?
Hi, thank you, Chair. Kim, I was just thinking, if you remember all those years ago when I stood for county, I was championing an Oyster card or something similar. And I know that's further down the report. But in terms of actually some funding, something similar, which is something that really does look at tariffs and rates of tickets and the costs, would attract at some point private players. And I think private players then could contribute to that. But I think the way to go for a fully integrated transport service for Lancashire County Council to be very serious about looking at an Oyster card or something similar, so that transport's available for everybody and affordable for everybody. And I'd really like to see us pushing Lancashire County Council into looking at this in more detail rather than the comment that they've made.
Yeah. Can we add that to the report, Alison?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Fab, you okay with that, Yvonne? So any further comments on that
Yeah,
section?
that's great.
Super. No problem. So we'll carry on through the report. So we've covered items 13. So then we're on to engage with different stakeholders to understand what steps they're taking to provide sustainable public transport. Got a bit of information there. And then we've got recommendation 14. The council will work with partners to improve timetable and facility provision across the borough. Is that inclusive of the accessibility issue we discussed earlier, Alison?
Yes, it covers all operators, bus and rail, and it includes, yes, looking at mobility, scooters and disability. Yes.
Brilliant. So that takes into account June's point earlier about Adlington Station and the lack of disability access for getting on the trains. So are there any comments on that section or anything people want to add in or amending or? No? Okay. So we're going to the next section, cycling. Now, I know it has been raised because, I mean, we haven't really had time to give this the attention that it deserves as to whether or not we could put in a recommendation that perhaps Overview and Scrutiny look at this in further detail next year, in the next sort of electoral year, in terms of cycling provision in the borough. But are there any? Yeah, a couple of hands. So Mark.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that I sent across was an offer really to work with the Canals and River Trust in improving the routes to help people get to bus stops to public transportation, whether that's through cycling or different routes. And I'm just hoping that we put a little bit in there about the actual routes as well, that a recommendation to look into working with other organisations such as Canal and Rivers Trust to improve those routes to help people get to transport hubs.
Yeah, that is a fair point. I don't think that's noted in the report. Can we put something in along those lines, Alison?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Fab. Right, and then we had June and then Yvonne.
Thanks, Chair. I think it would be a good idea actually to recommend that they look at cycling in the future, because it deserves to be looked at. And Mark's point could then be expanded upon. You know, we couldn't do everything, but we can actually recommend a further task group, and I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, because I think we've not. I mean, we've not
scratched
had time
that one.
No, we've not. Can we add that, Alison? Sorry, your list is growing.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Brilliant. Yvonne?
Oh, well, I'm actually going to be quite controversial here, Kim. Basically, I'm on a protest group stopping cyclists on towpaths because pedestrians have priority, but cyclists seem to forget that. And at the moment, there's an increase given lockdown since last year. The amount of cyclists on towpaths that literally are making people move out the way. They're too near, giving distancing. And it's something that really we're asking CRT to look at. And also, no, you're not going to like this, but if cyclists are going to use the towpaths, then they have to pay for a license fee, because the rest of us have to pay for a license fee, boaters do, etc. So I think that's a bit controversial. But the other issue I'd like to make as well is I am concerned of promoting cycling these days, particularly because a lot of people are on roads, and purely and simply because of the green agenda. And they're sort of breathing in all of the fumes outside, at the side of cars, etc. And I think if we truly want a proper cycling track and transport system for people to cycle around, then we need to look at something that's a dedicated cycle lane, and they're not on main roads, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I know, well, I think, is it through the SIL funding, Alison? The council has got a wish list, doesn't it, of cycle routes and pathways and stuff that they're trying to ascertain funding for?
Yes, we have got routes that came from the adopted local plan, and they're on the SIL infrastructure list. Obviously, it's partly the role of the county council to assist us on that. That's why we've engaged consultants Tetra Tech to look at the highways and transport strategy, so that we have enough evidence to say this is what we need to put forward to Lancashire County Council, plus highways and transport master plan, plus our transport strategy. One of the things with SIL funding is that you can't fund, you can't cost anything with SIL funding. So we need that funding up front to be able to design all these schemes to put forward. And that's why we've engaged the consultants to do that work for us.
Right. So,
Thank you.
so it's ongoing to a degree. Julia, do you want to come in next? I think you had your hand up next.
Thank you. I just want to back June's recommendation to call for a cycling task group, and to be honest, looking at, if you want to talk about canal footways, the space around canals is more than adequate to allow some shared space. In fact, there's great potential in improving accessibility there with just a bit of remodelling of the footpaths, in that there is land that, you know, and we should be thinking and be aspirational about creating more shared space that's off the road. You know, we want a reduction in cars on the road, but we want to have safe green corridors for people to walk, scoot, skate and cycle. And you know, and to be in place at the moment, there are regular reminders on the canal paths reminding all people, all citizens, to be respectful, that it is shared space. So, but we do need to do an awful lot more, and that comes back to planning, you know, when we're actually, you know, looking at the local plan and what we can build in that will help us provide wider proper foot. In some of these estates haven't even got footpaths.
June, you
provide
might
wider space for people to travel safely.
Well, thanks for that, Julie. June?
Well, I was just saying, we're discussing this, but it's not part of our task group. That would be for the cycle task group to go into these in a lot of depth, because there's a lot of work to be done there, obviously, you know. So yeah. I just think that's the way forward.
Yeah, I think so. Can we add a recommendation for a cycling task group, Alison? Just
yes,
basically,
we can.
if we, because I think we haven't looked at it. Well, no. We haven't had time to look at everything as much as we would like to. Right, Laura.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to endorse what you've just said, actually. Particularly, and it will need this task group will need to look at the responsibilities and duties of the different levels of councils as well. So, for example, I can give you that there's a cycleway was installed into Astley Village. It is now used as a car park by Derrien House.
Gosh,
and we cannot get county council to do anything about it. So they actually park all along it. And this is an issue, so that needs to be added into the task group duties when they come to look at this, at how we actually maintain cycle routes, and also the issues associated with ensuring that people comply with the highway code in relation to bells and warnings.
Yeah. So can we cover that in some form of recommendation, Alison? I'm sure that
yes, we can.
You know, it's
thank you.
Fab. Right, so we'll go on to the next section. We've got resident feedback, and I believe there's been some others that have come in lastly yesterday, so they'll be added. And then I think that's the end of the report, so to speak. So if we go back to, because we were going to look at
me.
Oh, that's the hands up. I was going to go back to Lindsay to the minutes.
Yeah, no, I missed it early on.
Yeah,
right back at recommendation 5. We actually, one of our statements is consider the possibility of. Could we not? It's doing some communication work. Can we just not carry out rather than consider the possibility? It's a bit woolly, that. It's right back at number 5.
Can we change that, Alison?
Recommendation 5. The council
Yep, that's
considers
fine,
the
thank
possibility
you.
of carrying out a borough-wide public transport survey. I think we should just carry it out, not consider it.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
It's
fine,
just a bit
thank you.
woolly.
No problem. No
And
problem.
I'll be
Agreed.
quiet now.
Never. Julia?
Again, I'm backing what Jean said. It'd be really useful if perhaps the communication could be targeted at business as well and employers, because obviously if they set policy within their organisations, you know, that might move us forward with sustainable transport to a degree. So yeah, I welcome what Jean suggested. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good point to add employers as well. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the council does a lot of work with businesses and stuff. Yeah, fair point. We'll add that if that's okay, Alison.
Yes, thank
Perhaps,
you.
if we go back to the minutes, because I think June had raised, I think at the beginning of the meeting about. I think if we have. Sorry, yeah.
I was going to say, I think we've covered most of them, Lindsay's points. But if you whap it on the screen, we could have a quick look if we could do that.
Could you get them up on the screen, Matthew? Is that okay?
I can do. Just give me 1 minute.
Thanks.
It's so much easier when they're there in front of you.
I know, I was scratching about trying to look for them then.
Yeah.
It had been raised about whether or not we could add a section about the feedback from some of the comments that Lindsay had made in terms of things that. So would it be possible to, because or do we just want it referencing in the minutes of the task group, or do people want a section about the interview that we had with Lindsay and some of his comments?
Well, Chair, things like away from more he's actually enhancing what we've said about more devolved powers to enable local issues to be addressed. So it strengthens what we've said, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And he mentions the northwest travel areas and things like that. You know, so there's a couple of things like that.
So if we have sorry, yeah.
And about a devolved bus service. It's just those comments that just beefs up what we've already said.
So if we had a section, because I know it had been muted about what's the point in having interviewed him if we don't refer in the report to what he's actually said. So if we had a section about our discussion with the Member of Parliament and some of the recommendations that you've just said, so stuff around more that we need to fight for more delegated powers for bus services, and the northwest travel area suggestion that he's made, and that we work with the Sorry, yeah.
And he mentions the dialogue with county.
Yeah.
He actually mentions that himself, you know, that county and the operators that we need to talk to one another.
Yeah, and involving our MP in that, because obviously some of the changes have to be made at government level as well, don't they? But also communicating with him and communicating the other way in terms of some of the things that he's fighting for around the bus routes and some of the other transport issues.
That lobbying ministers and that about the re-regulation could go there if necessary.
Yeah, so
perhaps that's where it would sit. I don't know.
Is that possible, Alison? If we have like a section in terms of the discussion that it was had with the MP, and then some of the things that we want to fight, that we want to be sort of fighting for on a national level, both in terms of the re-regulation of the bus services and the devolved bus route powers, and improving communication. I don't know, rather than it being a bit, I suppose it needs to be a bit, rather than, I don't know, something about working with the MP and lobbying ministers together.
Yeah, that's really useful. We'll put that in and have a look where it'll sit best. Thank you.
Is that okay with everybody? Yep. So I think we've come to the end of the report. Then is there anything anybody else wants to add on the report, or that people think needs changing, or? Right, no worries. So there's no hands going up. So as far as I'm aware, then Alison and Matthew will go away and sort of finalise the report, and then we'll have a look. And then will that get sent back out to members, Alison, or do we just want just as a sort of final say so, or do we just want it to go straight to overview and scrutiny?
My understanding is that, I mean, we're happy to bring it back out to members, or we can bring it to you, and then we'll put it forward to overview and scrutiny, whatever is acceptable.
Does the task group want a final look at it on email before it goes back? But it'll be quite a tight deadline because it has to go in pretty sharpish. Laura,
I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah. So are you okay with that, Alison? And if you,
sorry, I thought you spoke to me.
Oh, sorry, Laura. I thought it was Yvonne that spoke.
I was going to recommend that you did it, Chair, because otherwise, if it goes out to members, it's almost like having another meeting again, and we could undo some of the things we've done.
But Chair, can I
June,
if you just sent it out, if you had any comments, you could just email them. You don't have to meet again.
It's more of just a communication thing, just to say this is the final report, unless there's something glaringly obvious that's, like June will pick up on spelling, no doubt.
And no, it was grammar this time.
But, I mean, I think the bulk of the recommendations aren't going to change. I think it was just if there was anything that people thought was inappropriate or needed amending. So, so is that all right for you, Alison? If you just sort of send it out and you can just put a 24-hour turnaround on it or something?
That's fine. We'll try and get it out sort of late Monday and try and get comments back next Tuesday. So thank you very much.
Super. So that's great. So we're at the end of the discussion on this item. So we're okay to note the report.
Yeah.
We've not had any other business, so I've no urgent items. And I now declare the meeting closed and thank everybody for their attendance. I think this is the last task group meeting, so thank you to everybody for their involvement, and to Matthew and Alison for all their work as well. And hopefully we'll see the product of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And by the way,
Thank you.
June,
Thanks, Kim.
The parishes thing straight away as well.
I did. Oh, it was waving at me, Laura.
Thank you, Chair. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
It's like when I see